From the mayor's office, we welcome back once again Gloucester Mayor Greg Verga. Mr. Mayor, welcome back and happy 4th of July week.
Thank you. You too. It's good to be here.
All right. Very busy time right now. Of course, Gloucester just finished the St. Peter's Fiesta, which I'm guessing drew a lot of visitors over the 4 or 5 days of the event.
Yeah, it was a mob scene, but in a good way.
Okay. All right.
Traffic wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. At least, because I had to go back and forth from West Gloucester to the events, and
right.
it was okay.
Yeah, well,
worth the effort.
I live in the same neighborhood, so I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, we should get started on stuff because you have a lot of information to get out there today. What do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with some new hires. I mean, over the last couple of weeks, we've announced a few people. We've got some more that'll be coming out soon, but some of the high-profile positions. Connor McCorkle, our interim CFO, previously the assistant CFO, was officially appointed by the city council to take the job permanently. We're really happy that he stepped up. He's did a great job preparing this year's budget. It was one of the more difficult budgets we've had in recent years, and he did a wonderful job leading us through it. Rob Vicari has taken over. He was a local building inspector within the building department. He's now the building commissioner. He's been in there for about a month or so. Rebecca Visnick, who was the assistant shellfish warden, was appointed the shellfish warden. We're still in search of an assistant. If anybody out there is looking, check out the City of Gloucester webpage for job openings. Alex Koppelman has been appointed the Community Development Director. He'll go before the City Council next Tuesday. He was recommended by the O&A committee last night. And finally, the Harbor Master, we have second interviews with the 2 finalists, one this week and one next week, and I hope to have somebody appointed within a week after that second interview. So that's kind of it for the new appointments.
Sounds good. Now, you mentioned in our warm-up here about the Clean City Commission. What is that, and who's on it, and what's it all about?
Sure. So the last Clean City Commission meeting took place, I believe it was January 2020. We know it happened a few weeks later in 2020, and they have not met since. When I came to office, I think there was maybe one person who was still had an active appointment, and I tried for the 2.5 years I've been here to fill the commission, or at least get a quorum, and we did achieve that. Finally, we have 4 members. It's a 7-member panel, so we have 4 members officially appointed, which gives them a quorum so they can meet. And they met last night for the first time, and I joined them at that. So that's everything from organizing cleanups to making recommendations for changes to ordinances, things about cigarette butts and things. We talked about what they can do, and I've asked them to take a look at the ordinance and see if it needs any updating to what makes sense for today, because the ordinance dates back to the mid-90s. But again, we're still looking for 2 to 3 members to join that. If anybody's interested, they could reach out to my office, mayor@gloucester-ma.gov, or 281-978-281-9700.
All right. We go right down the list. What's the update on affordable housing?
So the Affordable Housing Trust, you may remember we put out a press release several months ago that I had awarded $1.5 million of the ARPA funds to the Affordable Housing Trust. They set up an application system and some criteria seeking projects from out in the world. They received several. I think they got 7 or 8. They settled on 6. 3 of them have received awards. Wellspring, North Shore Y, and Action Inc. And so the other 3 who they had reviewed and sort of approved have some T's to cross and I's to dot before we're ready to give them the award. So to make sure their project is ready to go, because by the end of this calendar year, we have to have the money allocated. By the end of 2026, the money has to be spent. So we have to make sure that there are no surprises before the end of this year, because we don't want to award it to someone who can't fulfill the obligations. That money would revert back to the government as opposed to us being able to give it to somebody else locally. So that's where that stands. And we're happy to help out those 3 organizations.
Before we get to an ARPA update, I want to just mention that the city paving seems to be well taken care of now, especially on Main Street, which is great for all the visitors we had. But it's give us a little update on those on the roads that have been repaved and everything.
Sure. So when I first took office, the pothole budget was, I think, $30,000 or something like that. We were able to really jack that up to $300,000, and it's been maintained for the last three budgets. But we also plugged in $3.1 million of the ARPA money that covered a lot of the road work that happened throughout the city over the last 2.5 years. Major project on Mount Pleasant, as you mentioned, Main Street. We've got a section of Apple Street, a private road, but we, as the city, we own some of that frontage, so we paved our section. So we were able to get a lot more areas that we wouldn't have normally. Keep in mind, there's something called Chapter 90, which is the money that comes from the state, I believe through the gas tax, a share that comes to us, cities and towns. We get about $600,000 or $700,000, which if we had 3 or 4 times that much, we might be able to pave most of the roads. So it doesn't do a lot. So that influx of the ARPA money really made a difference in the last couple of years. So going forward, we're just hopeful that the state has revenues keep up, and this so-called millionaires tax generates enough money, which is supposed to go to transportation and education, 2 areas that we could really use more.
As a little aside, there's a features writer in the Gloucester Times that's everybody's familiar with, named Gordon Baird, and he did his version of Cheers and Jeers, and he pointed out the great work that the DPW is doing. So I think that's worth mentioning as well.
It is worth mentioning as well, though he did point out something else which was factually inaccurate, and I'll have a chat with Gordon about that. Anyway, I usually call him when there's a disagreement on what he writes. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're able to cover more road than we have in the past. And if people have issues with their road, they should reach out to their ward counselor, and we'll see what we can get on the list.
Okay. What are other updates with respect to where that ARPA money is going or has gone?
Sure. So I'm going to be doing a presentation to the city council at their meeting a week from today. We're recording here on Tuesday, so it'll be July 9th, to let them know what we've spent, what we've assigned, and what we have left over. Spoiler alert, what's left over, if any, is going to go to the sewer treatment plant. You may have saw we recently borrowed $206 million for that project. But some of the highlights, and this is nothing new. These were all mentioned in press releases over the last 2.5 years. But of course, $10 million went to the water treatment plant. 3.1 I mentioned for paving. We've set aside $2 million for the Legion project. If people drive by, that the building there has looked pretty poor for several years, and we have this opportunity to fund some rework to the wood that's rotted and a paint job. It should look spectacular when it's complete. It should start, I believe, next week. So watch for that. It'll be wrapped and scaffolding put up. I mentioned the $1.5 million for the Affordable Housing Trust. We also put aside about $1 million that went to several nonprofits, things like Wellspring, the Open Door, drawing a blank on others, but there were a multitude of them that went to help out their projects, large and small. Of course, we plugged in $1 million for the school budget this year alone. And then there's several other small projects, things we've seen going on around town over the last couple of years, the Vietnam Memorial, the work at Green Street Park, the Tablet Rock refurbishment, so things like that. But we'll have a full update next Tuesday at the City Council.
Well, as summer rolls along now, Gloucester is famous not only for the St. Peter's Fiesta, but also for its Horribles Parade and all kinds of stuff coming up this summer for the city.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting several weeks here. So Horribles Parade you mentioned. So Horribles Parade, fireworks, and the Boulevard concert will be tomorrow. That's July 3rd. 4th of July, we don't really have any official events planned, but the so-called parrot gun, the cannon up at the fort, people should check that out. That's where some of the opera money went to, the refurbished cannons area up at the fort behind the visitor center. That will be firing 4 times. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 times on the 4th of July. So be ready. We're going to send out a text and email alert so people are aware of it. 8 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 5 p.m., and 8 p.m. to celebrate our independence. Further, Farmers Market kicked off 2 weeks ago at Burnham's Field, run by the Backyard Growers. They're calling it the Backyard Grocery, Grocery. And that's Wednesdays, except this Wednesday, because it's the Harville's Parade, from 2:30 to 6:30. And again, Burnham's Field, great central location, plenty of parking, easy to walk to for a lot of the housing projects around there, the senior housing. In no particular order, the block party, the first one kicks off July 13th. There's a lot of free public music out there this summer. The Meeting House concerts that happen at the Universalist Church begin this Friday, 7/5, July 5th. And then the bandstand concerts, Dave Benjamin, your old colleague at the school system, he's going to be running those Sundays, starting this Sunday on the 9th. So check those out. A lot of great performances will be happening. And then the Culture Splash will be returning next Thursday on the 11th of July and every Thursday throughout the summer. And that's a great way to bring together the two cultural districts we have at the Rocky Neck and the Downtown Cultural District. So check it out.
I have one really hard question to ask. How much longer are the piping plovers going to take up so much land at Good Harbor Beach?
My understanding is that they leave the nest in late July, mid-July. I don't know. But
Okay.
there have been no incidents. I actually saw my first one when I was there. We were talking about the Moby mats, and I was down the beach to do an interview in a suit on a hot 80-degree day. But and then I saw one come by and land, and then just hopping down to the water. So we had to remind people they are a protected species. We don't want to mess with them because it could really have an impact on our ability to use the beach for humans. So respect the fencing, respect the birds, and there's enough room that we can all share.
Okay, enough said. Anything else you want to mention, Mr. Mayor?
We just have the ongoing things we've talked about over the last couple of years, that the harbor plan is back from the state. The Harbor Planning Committee will have a meeting soon to vote on the feedback from the state, and we'll get that thing implemented. The Comprehensive Planning Initiative, or so-called master plan, should be moving along as well. No particular dates for work on that, public engagement on that. It's been a lot of public engagement over the last year or so, but that'll really set the course for us for the next 10 years or so. And then, of course, the MBTA communities, 3K zoning. Stay tuned for that. Pam is going to send you links for all of these things to our website, so people who want to get more details can get them right there.